Hello everyone, and welcome to another one of our videos. Please take a deep breath, relax, and enjoy.
People who went to private religious schools, what are your horror stories? Principal who was known for grabbing students by the neck and slamming them against a wall, having to attend church every Sunday or else you would be expelled from school, after 3 strikes per year. I was not being allowed to use the bathroom during class. Only 2 5-minute break periods outside of the 15-minute lunch period every day, no recess periods, not allowed to talk to classmates after the final class every day, on school grounds or on a bus. I was not allowed to wear shirts that have designs on them, mandatory after school study hall if any grade was below a C. I went to a Lutheran school from K-8th grade. I was in Catholic school from kindergarten to college. Grade school was tough, not because of the teachers, but because it was the same 35 kids for 9 years. Any horror stories I have were from the other kids, not faculty. My high school math teacher was expelled from the school and was defrocked from being a priest after he had a same-sex relationship with a student that he claimed started on the kid's 18th birthday. He avoided jail time, but all references to him, he was president of the school for a while, have been scrubbed with bleach from the school. College was Catholic, but just like there was a priest or nun here and there. For all intents and purposes, it was just a secular liberal arts school. I went to a Catholic school. I am from a Protestant background, so a lot of things in school confused me. For example, why pray to saints? Aren't they just human and they can't hear us? Why do we have to learn prayers by heart? Prayer is how we talk to God, so it doesn't need to be scripted. I asked these questions and the only answer I ever got was that's just how we do things here. I was unconvinced and left catechism class when I was 7. Fast forward a couple years and it's time for my sister to get into school. They denied her admission and refused to tell us why. My maternal uncle is a Catholic priest, so we got him to ask the bishop to find out why they didn't let her get an admission. It was because I hated on the Catholic faith and opposed it when she was 7. I didn't. I just respectfully requested to not follow those traditions for myself, and never stopped anyone else from doing it their way. Never hated on anyone. Never opposed people in that way. I was also a generally very good student and all my teachers liked me. I'm still sour about this. So essentially, we do not want critical thinkers in school. I attended Catholic school from kindergarten through high school, then went back and taught in both a Catholic elementary school and high school, and let me tell you that rules and punishments are far more rigid and ridiculous for employees than they are for students. You sign a contract stating that not only will you conduct yourself by the rules and standards of the church when at work, but also outside of the workplace. It was when a fellow teacher had become pregnant out of wedlock, and was thus terminated, losing her income and insurance, when she needed it most, that I decided to quit. I learned later that my officious and ultra-conservative principal was addicted to Quaaludes. The hypocrisy in those places never ceases to astound me. When I was in 1st grade, I went to Catholic school. Honestly, it was so long ago I remember little. Here we go. Uniforms. Girls had to wear skirts, dresses and knee-highs. Boys wore slacks and collared shirts. It got cold, and I asked my mom to buy me a pair of the boys' pants. She did. The teasing was awful. Every day it was something. They started calling me a boy equivalent to my name, pushed me off playground equipment, and would peek through the stall gaps while I was in the bathroom and say see you are a girl, or if they didn't do that, there would definitely be an boys in the girls' room. Another thing. I was a good kid and student. I never disobeyed, and I always did my work on time. I was that kid. We had mass in the gym every Friday. One of those Fridays I sat with my friend and we got bored, as 7-year-old children being forced to go to mass do. We made things interesting and played TV show. This comprised us making cameras with our hands, like a viewfinder or square shape, and filming everything we saw. We got hauled out of mass into the office for shooting guns at the crucifix. I cried hysterically when they didn't believe me. Then my mom showed up. I think they believed her as I was sent back to class. I think the teacher must have told everyone about it because my whole class was like, why did you shoot at Jesus? I was homeschooled after that until college. I now go to a public community college and I'm generally happy there. My best friend growing up went to one for a year. He was in public school with me till he had a health problem. His parents were scared the kids would make fun of him, so they transferred him. The next year he showed back up at the school and told us, There was nothing actually Christian about the Christian school, which seemed really poignant coming from a 12-year-old. His stories showed those kids were much crueler than any I ever encountered at school. Grew up Catholic. Went to private school for 2 years. Some fun things that happened. Some kids are sent there as rehab thinking that their children will learn. Turns out a kid I knew was involved with drugs from an early age and dealt them in all throughout high school. Class got yelled at for not sounding enthusiastic enough when we prayed. No one cared because we cared about actual schoolwork mostly. Still got punishment, but nothing changes. Detentions and in-school suspension, ISSs, galore for incomplete homework or general mischievousness. A racist teachers who had no credentials being allowed to work there. My parents were told that me learning or even speaking Spanish would cause me to be held back mentally by an equally mental teacher. My mom brought my dad and both asked the teacher to explain herself to the principal, whose eyes were apparently wide as dinner plates when she found out. Principal apparently didn't fire her that day, but later she did to unrelated reasons. The same teacher put me across the same table as this piece of who was the worst bully in the school. Not sure if it was revenge for what my parents did, but it's likely knowing her. I was good at school, but at same teacher's class, I would struggle to keep up. I almost got held back a year because I nearly failed that class. My parents transferred me to a different school because this was the last straw. I wound up excelling at this school and got a really high GPA. The highest I had ever gotten at that time. There were a few positive experiences I had with other students. The most memorable being that I made my entire class laugh for a solid 15 minutes for an oral book report that I did, including my crush. Best feeling ever. My parents love to tell a story about what a difficult student I was. The story, as they tell it, is that I once accused my math teacher of being a Nazi because I don't like math. What actually happened was that my math teacher spent an entire period fantasizing out loud about the day when God would ordain good Christians rounding up and killing all the gays. I called him a Nazi because he was standing there daydreaming about committing genocide to a class full of 16-year-olds. We had a priest who turned out to be a pedo. I know he tried to groom me at one point, but turns out I was too depressed to buy any of that stuff. Only time depression was a good thing. He was convicted a year or a bit after I left for offenses against at least 3 boys and spent the rest of his life in prison. I got 2 weeks detention for bringing a kid's book on evolution to school and asking if evolution made it possible for all the animals to fit on the ark. My thinking was that back in Noah's day there was only one species of elephant, horse, lion, etc., so there wouldn't be the problem of fitting multiple species of one family into the ark. Then after the ark, evolution kicked in and we got different species after they repopulated the world. To my mind, this was a perfectly fine way to resolve the young Earth equals evolution bad plus science is cool conflict I was having. Nope. Apparently I was thinking too much and needed to be punished for not believing what the Bible said. Parents forced me to enroll in a private Pentecostal college before I turned 18. Semester 1, 18 years old and a stricter curfew than I had growing up. Campus would let down at 1:30. If you showed up late you had to check in with security and be escorted back into the dorm. After 3 strikes you got fined for every tardy. Or, the other option was to not have anywhere to go. I guess it's better that you don't have a place to sleep than if you're allowed to be a dumb 19-year-old. I eventually figured out that if I shimmy down the freight elevator to the basement, I could unlock the old storm door that led outside. Never saw a fine again. Mandatory chapel. 5 days a week. Let me rephrase that. Mandatory evangelical chapel. If you missed 6 or more in a semester, you got fined for each one. A lot of the good Christian kids going to be pastors and they would scan their card and just go back to the dorm for halo or nap time. I never liked lying, so I felt worse for scanning and leaving than just not wanting to go. So I got more fines. A kid got asbestos poisoning from the wall. It's not like it happened because of us, but we probably made it worse. There was a super bad patch job for a piece of sheetrock they installed. No mudding or taping around the patch, just 4 easily accessible screws in the corners. So naturally we unscrewed it. To find out that the inside of it was big enough to get inside and climb up the studs or braces in the wall. Made it to the 5th floor, the top floor, and found all this old medical device equipment and x-rays, roof access etc. The kid that slept on the bunk, literally the floor, next to where we removed the sheetrock patch went home a year later with $3 million settlement and asbestos poisoning. Instead of updating the building and fixing the problems, the university spent millions of dollars on a new chapel building. Finally, one more. A handful of the gays banded together to demand a real conversation, respect, better treatment, and acceptance. A kid I grew up seeing in Bible camps was part of it. I was super happy he just finally came out and accepted himself. That was the last day I saw him. The school kicked all the gays out, and I never heard from him again. Super nice dude, and he had it so hard growing up in the state we lived in. He finally escaped and made it to the city, only to have these zealous pieces of poop throw him out on the street. The only good thing about this experience was that it started me on a real journey to find God. That led me to atheism. Life is much better these days. Total fines for 1.5 years of church college, $6,000. My card apparently scanned, but didn't record all the chapel visits. I worked overnight security on the weekends. Instead of giving me an exclusion like they said they would, they fined me. Also, I failed English 101 because I said $5 million on a new chapel wouldn't make it a better place to worship, and that if that was true, God must not care about an African believer praying on a dirt floor. So that was another wasted $2,800.
Congratulations, you've made it to the end. We want to thank you again for giving us a few minutes of your time, and we wish you have a great rest of your day, night, or whenever you're watching this. If you enjoyed the video, please make sure to subscribe, it really does help us a lot. That's it from me, roll the outro.